this news because it's the same stuff we've been talking about. We just have someone on record, actually two people on record addressing it.
Yep.
We've been wondering about A.J. Brown. Is he going to be an Eagle for the 2026 football season? We've had deadlines come and go, but now at the owners' meetings, we've had Howie Roseman, of course, GM of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Nick Sirianni, their head coach, address this.
Yes.
So let's go through this first. Here's what Howie Roseman had to say when he was asked about A.J. Brown remaining a Philadelphia Eagle. He said, quote, "I understand that there's interest in the A.J. Brown story. I unfortunately don't have a home under a rock. But my answer to any question on A.J. Brown is A.J. Brown is a member of the Eagles. From my perspective, anything you ask me about A.J. Brown, I'm going to go right back to that answer. I understand the interest. I put on TV and I see that there's interest, but my answer is A.J. Brown is a member of the Philadelphia Eagles." Really gave us nothing there.
Yeah, it's a nothing burger because ultimately he doesn't want to say anything where he would contradict himself. And I think the writing is on the wall in terms of A.J. Brown being dealt. He's not going to start the season as a Philadelphia Eagle. He's going to be moved in the middle of the summer. What it comes down to is salary cap management. If the Philadelphia Eagles traded A.J. Brown before June 1st, they would have to contend with a $43.5 million dead cap hit, which negatively impacts their salary cap by $20 million. If they wait until after June 1st to trade him, it's a $16.5 million dead cap, and it actually helps them save $7 million. So I think that this is all about managing the cap. It's all about the math. A.J. Brown, moving on from him, they're going to do it later this summer when it's advantageous to them in terms of being able to maintain salary cap flexibility for the 2026 season. Because what we've always seen from Howie Roseman is that just because the season starts, it doesn't mean that the roster is complete. They've always found ways to add. You look at last year during the season, they traded for Jalen Phillips from Miami, edge pass rusher, who did a really good job for them down the stretch, applying pressure on their defensive side of the ball. So every single year, they make additions, they make tweaks to their roster throughout the course of the year. So they have to maintain that salary cap flexibility to keep all options on the table in terms of continuing to add to their roster.
And his tone has shifted a little bit. Now, he still is steadfast in being very calm in this and not really giving us much to break down. But at the owners' meetings this week, he's saying, AJ's an Eagle, AJ's an Eagle. It's kind of Belichickian. He's just kind of giving you the same thing over and over. But in January, he said this about A.J. Brown. This is Howie Roseman, GM of the Philadelphia Eagles. He said, quote, "It's hard to find great players in the NFL, and A.J. is a great player. I think from my perspective, that's what we're going out and looking for when we go out here in free agency in the draft, just trying to find great players who love football, and he's that guy." So definitely a little more pointed in the fact that A.J. Brown is awesome. He loves football. These are the type of people that we bring in here. So that commentary, at least, you could interpret it as we don't know if we want to move on from him. Whereas what he said this week, it's like he's a member of the Eagles. That's all I'm going to say. I understand the interest. I understand everyone's talking about it, but he's a member of the Eagles. Didn't really wax as poetic as he did previously.
Yeah, he didn't. But here's the thing. I think it got to a situation where it was untenable for the Philadelphia Eagles to continue to move forward with A.J. Brown. Last year, having this guy openly questioning what's going on the offensive side of the ball, at the time, new offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo, and then, of course, Nick Sirianni with the buck stopping with him. I think that puts a lot of pressure on all the key actors within that franchise in order to try to keep it together, mend fences, and go out there and do their jobs. When you have somebody that's a malcontent, somebody that doesn't have confidence in the direction of the franchise after you just had success at the highest level of the sport, it makes it hard to believe that you can keep that person in the fold long term. And I think it got to a point last year with what we saw in Buffalo in the second half of that game where their passing offense was non-existent, in the first half of the game against the Tampa Bay Bucks where the passing offense was non-existent, in the second half of the game against the Rams where the first half against the Rams where the offense was non-existent. Like, there are too many instances you can point to with the pass offense or the offense in general not being very good, and we know that A.J. Brown is a focal point on that offense. You know, he's in the conversation for the best offensive player on that team. And he has been for the last half decade. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge for the Philadelphia Eagles to hang on to him, which is why I think Howie Roseman is taking the tack that he is and giving you the stock answer or coach speak or whatever you want to frame it as. He's not going to give you much. He's not going to show his hand. But I think everybody can see the writing on the wall that A.J. Brown won't be an Eagle this year.
Well, when you mentioned that A.J. Brown was very vocal about his frustrations with the offense, anytime he would say things, we would then say, well, what's going on with this head coach? Nick Sirianni. You would always say, isn't that a coach's job to make sure that stuff like that stays in-house?
Correct.
Well, Nick Sirianni was at the NFL owners meeting, and he, of course, was asked about A.J. Brown and his prospects of remaining an Eagle for this season. And here is what Nick Sirianni had to say.
Nothing's changed there. AJ's an Eagle. Nothing's changed from the last time I spoke to you guys. And yeah, that's where we are. AJ's an Eagle. Nothing's changed since last time we talked through everything. But you're going through all the process that you go through each and every year. It's a little different this year because, you know, with a little bit of with the scheme change that we're making, you don't do as much of, hey, we're going to break down every single play that we ran last year, right? So it's just a little bit different of a process, but the process is, you know, getting ourselves ready for OTAs, bringing the staff together, everybody learning the new pieces, the new job descriptions of what we need to do within it, and that's what we're focused on right now.
He didn't give us anything either.
No.
They clearly had their talking points.
But he did say this year is a little bit different.
Yep.
From the last few years. What that means to me is this is the first time we're actually entertaining trading an all-pro wide receiver and a guy that made our quarterback Jalen Hurts what he is today, which is a champion and a Super Bowl MVP. So I do think it's more likely than not that A.J. Brown on the move. Smalls, I think the biggest question is where's he going? I think who's the team that is an A.J. Brown away from being considered a favorite as a title contender. I mean, all the signs point to the New England Patriots. Sure. They were in the conversation to acquire A.J. Brown, you know, earlier in the month. The L.A. Rams were also in that conversation. I don't know if that's still a thing because of them paying out the bonus to Devontae Adams, but I think that there are a lot of teams that feel like they are on the cusp of being able to break through, and they look at A.J. Brown as the missing piece. Hell, the Philadelphia Eagles once upon a time looked at A.J. Brown as the missing piece, which is why they traded for him. So
that's right.
I suspect that based on where the wide receiver market is, seeing what Jalen Waddle was traded to the Denver Broncos for, the Philadelphia Eagles have a template for what a return on an A.J. Brown deal would look like, and it's just a matter of who's willing to meet that asking price and when.
We talked about Nick Sirianni saying things are different this year. Sean Mannion coming in. He's going to implement a new scheme. A.J. Brown, we know, is incredibly productive. He's an excellent football player.
Yeah.
But if you remove him from the equation, do you think that Devontae Smith could be the primary receiver? Do you think that – how much do you think it would impact what the Eagles are trying to do if A.J. Brown is not a part of the equation?
Yeah, I think Devontae Smith is the number one wide receiver. Let me say this really quickly, though, because you just brought up something, and I think it's important to drill down on. They're bringing in a new offensive coordinator again.
That's right.
The Philadelphia Eagles have had a churn at the offensive coordinator position like nobody's business. I mean, this past year was Kevin Patullo. The year before that, it was Kellen Moore. The year before that, it was Brian Johnson. The year before that, it was Shane Steichen. I mean, that's a lot of churn when it comes to your offensive coordinator spot. And one of the things that you need when you're ushering in a new coordinator, you got a new play caller and a new system that you're building, is buy-in. You need buy-in. Remember, Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach, long-time tenured coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's gone now. Mm-hmm. He's no longer a part of this. So if you're Nick Sirianni, you need complete buy-in into the new that the team is going to be implementing. And you didn't get buy-in from A.J. Brown last year with an old system that won you a championship 2 years ago. So I do think when it comes to the chemistry factor, there's a there when it comes to potentially moving on from A.J. Brown. We talked about it coming into this year. Ain't a whole lot of benefit of the doubt for Nick Sirianni. A lot of this stuff is on him, which is the drama that's been going on. Clearly, Howie Roseman believes this team can contend at a championship level. If Nick Sirianni and the Eagles fall flat for a second straight year, then all of a sudden I do think it's on the board that the Eagles move away from Nick Sirianni. So if you're the head coach, after dealing with all of the drama with A.J. Brown, knowing that a longtime tenured offensive line coach is gone, knowing that you're bringing in a new offensive coordinator and play caller, you want to give that every opportunity to work, and you don't want somebody looking over your shoulder, second guessing, and then being public about his scrutiny in the way that A.J. Brown showed last year. So again, I think it's more likely than not that A.J. Brown is going to be on the move from Philadelphia. The only question is, where is he going this offseason?
Yeah, you have to determine if the juice is worth the squeeze. Obviously, if they can get their desired return for him, I would imagine that the trade father and Howie Roseman would make that deal.
Yeah, they'll get
right?
the return for him. Like Jalen Waddle went for a 1+. We live in a world where Jalen Waddle, receiver for the Miami Dolphins, went for a first-round pick to the Denver Broncos. A.J. Brown is absolutely going to go for a first-round pick. It's just a matter of what the tack-on compensation is going to be. But, again, they have a framework now that you have this other deal that happened this offseason, and it's just a matter of who's going to be willing to meet that price. And I think that there could be a team that misses out on a target that they have in the draft, looking for help in their skill position core, looking for a touchdown scorer, looking for a playmaker outside, and A.J. Brown fits that bill. He's still playing at an all-pro level. So, yeah, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to get what they want. They're not trading him right now because it puts them in a really tough spot with their salary cap. They're going to wait until the cap implications are not as significant, and they're going to trade him post-June 1. The only question is, where is he going?
He's Chris Canty. I'm Michelle Smallman. Cece mentioned the draft. Coming up next, Matt Miller released his 7-round, that's right, all 7-round mock draft yesterday. Could Ty Simpson actually slip out of the first round? We're going to go through that. But first, I want to tell you about the wellness company